I did 4 nights of ayahuasca in 1 week. And during that week, I had the worst experience of my life, and I also had the best experience of my life. You know, one night was full of terror, and I thought it would never end. And the other night, I felt like I was God. I felt complete bliss and peace and wholeness and oneness and connectedness with myself and everything. And to say that it hasn't changed my life is an understatement. So in this video, I'm going to talk about what ayahuasca was like and also what it did to me even months later. I did this ayahuasca ceremonies in January of this year, and it's this is 2020 and now it's July, so almost 7 months afterwards. So I did ayahuasca at the retreat center called Rhythmia in Costa Rica. And you know, there's so much that happened, so many details. I want to keep it concise. And so I'll just start with the worst night, which was, I think, the first night and parts of the second night of me doing ayahuasca, very similar themes. And that was just an emotion of sheer terror and complete lack of trust in the process. To explain it a little bit further, so what ayahuasca does is very extremely hallucinogenic, and the way I see it is it is extremely mind expanding, way beyond what the human mind is really meant for. It shows you the expanse of reality in the universe, and you experience just alternate dimensions, and it's just it is a wild ride. It is really extremely intense. You know, of course, you see like a kaleidoscope of patterns and colors and shapes and entities, and it's just, it is very difficult. I'll probably show an example. In experiencing something that mind-bending and extreme, not only is it just a visual experience, your sense of time and space just gets completely warped, and you just lose track of it. And you know, some people who are really good at handling psychedelics, and you know, ayahuasca would be one of them, they're very good at letting go and surrendering to the process. And I, not good at that at all. I was unconsciously, consciously resisting it and trying to understand so desperately what was going on. That need for understanding and seeking essentially safety just makes the experience worse. But it's also a beautiful gift in that, you know, in that those nights of terror and difficulty, it was showing me the predominant subconscious emotions that I struggle with, whether I'm conscious of it or not, but are also just predominant in my life, my entire life, which is lack of trust and faith, not being able to let go and surrender to the here and the now, and just most importantly, just how much fear just kind of runs my life. And I never thought it was that big of a deal for me, but you know, psychedelics in general, I think, and especially ayahuasca, they just amp up the volume. So ayahuasca just shows you who you really are. You know, are you a person that's run by shame, anger, jealousy, fear, right? There's so many insecurities, and it's different for everybody because everyone's got different kind of dominant emotions that they struggle with. And so being fear and not being able to have control over the experience and having it just completely take that away from me was terrifying, and it freaked me the hell out. I mean, I literally thought I had convinced myself I had somehow got trapped into a cult, and they're drugging us up and keeping us locked in this weird, screwed up dimension reality, and we're stuck, and I was stuck there forever, including everyone that was at the retreat. And you know, they said not to they say not to drink water during the experience, and because it I think it kills the effects of ayahuasca. So, you know, I tried to hang on as long as I could, but once I kind of broke and thought that I was in a cult and I was screwed, I got up and I went to the water dispenser to get some water, and I started chugging water. Like, I'm like, screw this. I am done with this. I want it to end. I'm so tired of feeling this way and seeing what I'm seeing. Like, just end the madness. That did not work. I'm pretty sure for at least another hour or two after that, I just had no choice but to just sit with it. I was asking the staff, because they have lots of assistants there at the retreat to kind of like help people that are having a difficult time. I'm asking them, when is it going to end? When is it going to end? And the answer is always the same. Oh, soon. It's going to end soon. You'll be okay. And nothing was helping, and I was just suffering the entire night. I can't say that I would want to go through that again, but there's gifts in that experience, which I'll kind of dive deeper into later. But yeah, so that was my night of terror, the worst night of my life. It's difficult. It is difficult. Obviously, I'm alive right now. I survived it even then. But when you're under it, when you feel like you lost your mind, it's difficult to know whether you'll be okay or not. But that's where the most amount of growth is as a person, and that's where the healing comes, is allowing yourself to go through something so challenging like that, surrendering to that process, and then coming out on the other side and knowing that you're still okay, you're back to yourself. That is extremely powerful. But we'll talk more about those things later. So let me continue the journey, right? Second night, as I mentioned before, there were moments of terror for sure. They were telling us in the retreat that it's very important to surrender and let go and set really good intentions for what you want to get the maximum benefits. And for me, it was, please let me release this fear that has had a stranglehold on my life, and I had no idea how intense it was. I get the message. I'm a very fearful person, even though I don't consciously realize that. It's subconscious, right? Okay, I get it. I'm a fearful person that has a hard time letting go of control. And my way of trying to control things is always understand what's going on as much as possible, so that when I understand it, then I can have more control over it, so that I can protect myself, so I can feel safe, right? That's where it all comes down, this false sense of safety that I keep trying to develop for myself. And I knew it was time to let go of that. So that was my intention for the second and third night. Was kind of, they were very similar. You say that stuff to yourself over and over while you're going through this crazy, insane experience. And at some point, there's just something that clicks. And it's not even really a conscious thing. It's just, you let go. The ayahuasca sense is when you truly let go, not just when you say it in your head, but when you've just really let go. And then it shows you the divine bliss. It shows you what it feels like to be sort of a whole awakened being that's totally at peace with yourself, in your soul, not the personality and the projections and the masks that we all create. We all create a personality to kind of deal with the world, to make ourselves feel more loved or safe or whatever it is. And it's not that. It's the wholeness inside that's just from being a human with a soul, just being totally at peace with that, and not having, and you just don't need, without needing anything to get to that point, right? It just shows you that hey, you can just be you. You can just be grateful to be alive, to be human, to have a soul, and just be so at peace, to have so much confidence, to have so much feeling of oneness and connectedness. I'm not a religious person. I've never been a religious person, but at that moment, it's man, I feel like I'm Jesus or Buddha right now. It's just so much intense inner peace. Never experienced that in my life. And I consider myself a pretty chill and peaceful person to begin with. But this is another level where it's just wow, I get it now, right? So to have such contrasting experience was mind-blowing, how you can go from terror and resisting the process. And, sometimes it's so difficult to even try to do anything with that, because you don't even know that you're resisting, because we're so conditioned to try to think our ways out of a problem and trying to prevent bad things from happening to us, right? It's part of being human, but a big part of it is just trauma and childhood wounds and different, belief patterns that we build to like try to resist pain so that we can feel safe or feel loved or whatever. Another big theme of the retreat, or just when you do ayahuasca anywhere, is this concept of purging. And so I mentioned about kind of letting go of emotions and stuff that is internal emotional resistance, usually to the experience of ayahuasca or just anything challenging. There's this purging of that, where you let go of needing to do that. And that usually comes in the form of puking and pooping. And most people that experience ayahuasca, especially if they do it enough nights in a row, and where they get deeper and deeper every night, they're going to puke. And it's just like this emotion builds up so intensely inside you. It condenses and condenses, and eventually your body just wants to eject it out. And so it's so funny because it's just such a thing that like all the beds that they had for all the participants have a bucket next to it. So in that bucket, you're supposed to puke into that when you puke. And so that's what I did. And it's just the puke. I have never puked that intensely and in that much in my life. It was a bizarre experience to puke like that, because it was kind of a foreign thing to me. And then at least 2 of the nights I had like diarrhea too afterwards. And it's not that bad where it's like you poop your pants, although some people do that when they have a really intense emotional discharge and purging. But for me, it was fine. I could feel it, and I went to the bathroom, and I went into the bathroom, no problem. But after the puking and diarrhea, it's a very relaxing feeling. You just feel like you just let go of a ton of weight. I guess both figuratively and literally. So anyways, I really want to talk about the last night of doing ayahuasca, because every night I was doing it, I was just going deeper and deeper into the experience. And as you go deeper, you learn to let go more and more. And the 4th night was the smoothest night, but also the most powerful night. That's where I felt like I really broke through to the other side, and I fully embraced the ayahuasca experience. And I think I had just learned, both consciously and subconsciously, the lesson of letting go fear, or I should better say, letting go of the resistance towards fear, letting go of needing to protect myself from fear and protect myself from just from experiencing something challenging and painful or fearful, right? I literally remember saying very clearly in my head, just fear, just bring it the fuck on, just bring it on. I'm tired of this. Just, if I need to feel it, I need to feel it. Just bring it on, right? And so at that moment, it was like, I finally got it. It's like, okay, it's no longer about trying to avoid it. It's just like, if I'm going to feel it, then I'm not going to try to block myself from feeling it, or trying to play this game of like trying to understand my way out of the situation, or think my way out of the situation. Just like, come and get me, right? And when I finally did that, I had intense visions. I was seeing weird shapes and entities. And then I vomited. And then once that happened, it was as if I had broken through and into this spirit realm of some sort. This was just a very strange dimension, because I was literally seeing aliens. And I know it sounds crazy, but they just look, I've never seen these types of looking aliens ever in my life. And they're so weird with the eyeballs and the shapes, and like, it's scary because you're not used to seeing something so bizarre that you've never seen, but also, we're naturally scared to look at anything that is not something that we're familiar with. And, but it wasn't that they were out to get me or trying to hurt me. It's just, I was just so unfamiliar. I won't go too far down the alien experience rabbit hole because that gets kind of weird for people. What I did experience was this deep sense that I was connected back to my soul and heart again. That I had been disconnected for a very long time, living in this sort of personality that I've developed, this mask that I thought was me, but it's not. It's sort of like the ego's construct or something. So yeah, I felt like I was completely devoid of that, and I was just in my soul completely, just at one, feeling completely one with myself. And I mentioned this on the second night, I felt some of this too, but this was like the most intense feeling of oneness and like connectedness. I was literally in this, at least what I was seeing or hallucinating. I'm not really sure it felt so damn real. This dimension, this spirit realm, it felt really, really real. And I still feel like it's real or something. But it's like I would like visualize, people would pop into my head, and when they would pop into my head, I would see like their spirit form just kind of pop into my vision, and I would have a conversation with them. I had this with my fiance. I saw like, because we're in the same room, and she was laying down, and it was as if her spirit kind of got up from her body and started to interact with me kind of telepathically and started to dance around. It was really beautiful to watch. And we had this full-on conversation just talking about life, and it was so cool to talk to soul without any insecurity or baggage. It was a pure connection conversation. Like everything was free flowing back and forth. Because normally when you talk to people, there's filters, right? You're trying to filter what you're trying to say to them to either not make yourself look bad or not to hurt them. And they're doing the same thing back to you. Most humans do not talk in a way that's truly pure, without any kind of filters, without any kind of protecting yourself or trying to keep from hurting them, or all this kind of filtering crap. And so it was really cool to have these conversations with other souls, and I was like visualizing like different souls were popping in and out. It was Danica, then her mom came up, and then talked to me for a little bit, and then I had a spirit conversation with Michael Beckwith, who is the founder of Agape Spiritual Center, and he was a speaker there as well. That's why it's probably one of the reasons why it popped up. He was speaking at the retreat during one of the seminars, but his soul popped in there, and we had a soul-to-soul conversation. I don't think he remembered it in human form, but I mean, it's so crazy how real it felt, that you're so certain that it is real. And sometimes I question, like, did I really experience that? Was it just making shit crap up in my head? Or was it like a real experience in another dimension, right? The spirit dimension, the astral plane. But it was beautiful because I felt even more like Jesus and Buddha, like an ascended awakened being, and it was, it's just the most wild experience of my life. And it was so interesting how like you have to go through so much hell to get to that point. And it boggles my mind how this all works. The whole point of life, and what happens to us after death. It was so interesting. But that retreat was profoundly game changing to me, because before ayahuasca, I was a very agnostic, I would say borderline atheist. Like if I had to bet money, I would probably say, oh, well, it probably is not a God, but maybe there's a chance that there's something else beyond that. Now it's like I'm absolutely certain that there is a God. Rewinding back to my fourth night, I'm kind of disorganized because the experience was so mind-blowing. It's hard to be very concise with it. But I had a conversation with a God. So the experience, what was very powerful from my realization, was that there was not just a God. There is a God, a creator, and not a God in the sense of religious God that's like a father necessarily, right, with fatherly characteristics. It was more like just a creator, an entity, a being that encompasses the entire universe, including us. And like you see kind of hints and clues in other religions where they will say that God is everywhere, in everything, in you, and all like that. I felt like I was part of God, that I was God, that I was a small part of God. Like it was all kind of like this weird, everything was connected and part of a cycle of some sort. You have like the universe is the best way I could describe it, that's God. And then you have other ascended beings that are like gradually on their way to becoming one with God. And so you have like, you know, like an example would be like a galaxy could be the body of a smaller God. Which is on its path and journey to becoming one with the rest of the universe, to become the one true God or whatever. It was such an interesting concept, but basically the nature of our existence is that we as souls, and it can start off as something as simple as a rock or grass, we gradually ascend and grow into a more and more awakened being. We are in this human form, so this is one path of the journey. But once we're done with the human experience, then we become the astral version of ourselves, and then that continues to grow over time until we expand and we expand and we expand and we grow until we become united with our one true self, which is being part of God, the universe. Anyways, that was a powerful experience, a very powerful spiritual experience for me to see like this whole, how things are connected and this concept of God and everything. It was, trust me, look guys, it was not my intention at all to have this spiritual experience where I'm interacting with souls and aliens and having a connection with God. That was not my intention at all. My intention was to get with subconscious childhood wounds and trauma and just limiting beliefs and baggage that is holding me back in life. That was it. That was 100%, 110% the intention. I had no idea that I was experiencing this crazy cosmic crap. But then at the same time, I think that's what ayahuasca wanted to show me in order to further my path, was that to have faith in the divine order of the world, that there is a higher power, that, you know, that we are all taken care of, that the human existence is not where it begins and ends, you know. And back to, you know, there was a lot of emotional healing in terms of really going face to face with one of my biggest wounds, which is kind of like this fear, this need for safety, right? And like, I wasn't conscious of it, but what I realized afterwards was that I use my mind to think through things a lot. I lead with my head. I overthink things. I always overly try to understand things, right? And I always just thought that's just how I am, but I realized that my need to understand, to overthink, and always be thinking and analyzing is just a cry for safety. So if I can understand it, I can control it, I can prevent myself from a worst case scenario, from experiencing a worst case scenario, so I can feel safe and in control and not gonna die, you know, if you really want to come down to it, right? That kind of thing. And usually we're only conscious of the more surface level thing, like, I think a lot, or I'm always trying to understand, but really there's a deeper root cause to that. And the beautiful thing about ayahuasca is that it pulls that root cause up by the roots and it just shoves it in your face, and you have to deal with that, the real crap. So yeah, that was how that experience was for me during that retreat. And then what followed were months of really just kind of letting this knowledge marinate in my head and in my soul, and just getting used to like this new concept of reality, because it was very confusing. Like, okay, I had just experienced the craziest shit in my life, very cosmic, very spiritual. What do I do with that? What's the meaning of life now? Like, what's the purpose of me doing anything? You know, what's the new purpose going to be now? Right? So I spent months just trying to figure this out. And, you know, for me, like, and it's been 7 months since, right? So right now it's July 2020. And now I'm trying to figure that. I'm starting to get better and better at figuring that out, because I think it's still pretty recent. Only 7 months ago that I had this experience. But now I'm a lot more focused on finding things and building a business and future for myself that's more connected to like love and also giving back to others. In fact, this YouTube channel is a manifestation of that. You know, I wanted to know, like, what can I do to do things that I enjoy more, and what can I do to also share more and maybe help other people that are on some kind of path of growth. It doesn't have to be people that are on a crazy path like taking plant medicine like ayahuasca. It can be too intense, and the timing has to be right for somebody. You know, basically on a path of growth. Like you wouldn't take something like ayahuasca if you're not on a path of intense growth. But at the same time, that growth might be different for other people. Essentially this channel is going to be about talking about love, relationships, consciousness, spirituality, all those topics that I'm very passionate about thanks to my ayahuasca experience. And whatever comes of it, I really not really sure yet, but I just want to start getting the message out there. Basically just doing things, basically living a life. My purpose now that I'm starting to realize more and more is to live a life full of love, passion, joy, loving, deep relationships, and then contribution and love towards others. Before this experience and everything that I'm trying to do right now, I was living a life of very materialism, trying to make a lot of money so I can accumulate things and experiences just to pull and milk as much experience and joy out of life as I can. And that's not to say that chasing joy is not a bad thing, but it was devoid of really important components like love and giving back and sharing and connecting with other people. And now that's all I want to do is do that. And this channel is kind of a manifestation of that. So hopefully that does happen. But if not, then maybe it will come in another form other than YouTube. But we'll see what happens over time. So yes, that was my ayahuasca experience, and this is where I'm at right now, 7 months later. I highly recommend doing plant medicine like ayahuasca. Another one that's going to be that's supposedly even more intense than ayahuasca is iboga, and we were supposed to do it this year, me and my fiance, but with the quarantine and everything getting canceled, that will probably have to be postponed until next year. As far as ayahuasca being something, as far as if I would recommend ayahuasca to people, I would say most definitely yes. What I would say though is you might want to be careful with this depending on how tight your life is, because you really do need some time after doing ayahuasca, months afterwards, to kind of let yourself kind of collect itself again. Because once you do ayahuasca, it is like a supernova. It's like a supernova explosion in your head in terms of consciousness and realizations and just what you understand of this world and this reality. And afterwards, it takes time for it to kind of collect back again into some kind of organized manner where you can really figure out how you're going to live life to its fullest. Make sure that whether you have the time off or if you have a job that gives you that chance to have a little bit of wiggle room in terms of relaxing a little bit more. Because if you have a very high stress job, it's going to be difficult to keep up with that after ayahuasca. And you might kind of kill some of the benefits because you're not letting all that new awareness and knowledge collect and organize again. Because it is going to be very disorienting for the next couple months or a few months after doing an intense ayahuasca experience. One more important thing that I want to add to my experience with ayahuasca, especially post-ayahuasca all these months later, is that ayahuasca itself is not the magic pill that erases all your worries and pains and you can just live life without having to deal with them ever again. What ayahuasca does, at least I'll speak for myself, is that it unlocks the door that has been previously locked by subconscious emotional trauma conditioning. It unlocks that, it opens the door, and it shows you the light, shows you what's possible, shows you the truth of your life and reality, and it gives you the chance to make more intention-driven decisions in your life. It makes you wake up and become conscious of everything you're doing, and that's where the personal development still plays a key role. When you're dealing with challenges in life, how do you show up? You still have to make that decision. Am I going to follow the same old patterns, or am I going to try a new path? Because now I know what that new path can be. I know it's possible. I know I don't need to be making decisions. I no longer need to keep making decisions in life unconsciously that are just reinforcing old habits and old belief systems and I no longer need to believe the insecurities, right? Those emotional moments will still come up where it gets challenging and you feel an emotional resistance, right? Either you get a little scared or you get a little angry or whatever that thing is. It will start to raise up a little bit, but you'll be able to catch yourself more and make a decision that comes from the right place. And even with that said, it doesn't mean you'll never make mistakes. You do make mistakes, but then you're more aware of the mistake as you go through it each time. And so you just become better and better at catching yourself and making the right decisions for yourself. And it's a new muscle, right? You're still trying to, ayahuasca sort of shows you the programming that has been running your life that you have not been really that aware of, maybe a little bit. It's possible to get some of this awareness through like therapy, any kind of coaching, self-development, whatever. But like ayahuasca really shows it to you. Like it's no longer a thought, a conscious thing. It shows you all the subconscious stuff as well. That increased awareness, even more so than traditional self-help stuff, gives you more opportunities to make the best decisions for yourself moment to moment. And so there's still work ahead of you. If you do ayahuasca or any kind of plant medicine, you still have to put in the work and put in new programming to replace the old programming. And that's still going to be a little bit of a challenging process, because you're still trying to weed out, okay, what's the old way of doing things? This is going to be the new way of doing things, right? And that's it's not going to be the cleanest, smoothest process, but it does become a lot easier. It does shift your beliefs, because once you connect with yourself in terms of from a place of love and understanding of yourself, and as well as to others, you become a much more loving person and understanding person. And to me, that's the biggest benefit, because once you've developed more of those qualities in yourself, at least for me, thanks to ayahuasca, the decisions around business, around love, around friendships, and everything, it just changes the way you look at it, which then changes the decisions that you make and the path you take. So anyways, I'm Brian with Wake Up Soul, and this is my channel where we talk about relationships, love, consciousness, spirituality, all those fun subjects. And subscribe to the channel if you want to stay tuned for more videos like this. I don't just talk about ayahuasca or plant medicine. I talk about other things too, right? And then like the video if you enjoyed this as well. So.